My academic background is a little bit different than the majority of the faculty because I came to academia after over 30 years in the private sector. So out of college, I got a job with one of the big 8 accounting firms at the time, stayed there for into my 7th year, then joined a financial services firm, Merrill Lynch. It was in total in the private sector for over 30 years. But during that period of time, I always had an interest in academia, and I was always drawn towards teaching. And so I examined and looked into alternatives to see if I could really get a PhD, a doctorate in accounting, and become a full-time accounting professor. And that, in fact, was the option that I chose. I found out about it. I got my doctorate at Rutgers. My research interest, because of my background, was all about ethics. And so my dissertation, my articles focus on the ethics of accounting, what's right and wrong. There have been a lot of frauds that are well publicized. There were some ethical breakdowns during the financial crisis, which I was quite familiar with. And so that's my sweet spot in terms of research. It continues to this day. And it's very fulfilling. I was already at Merrill Lynch for probably 8 or 9 years, and I was being sent to Tokyo, which is pretty far away, to run a substantial part of the business that was overseas. And I had a meeting with the chairman, with the CEO of the company. And he said to me, Ron, when you go across the world, you're going to be over there, we're here, we trust you, all right? But this place can be a little bureaucratic. If you find yourself in a difficult situation, my advice is this. And he said, I followed it too. If you're unsure, ask for forgiveness. Don't ask for permission. And so, that doesn't apply to students, but it worked well in my career. And then when I went over there and there were situations where, I was up against it and had to make a decision at the time, I did the best I could. And I followed the advice. If the company didn't like what I decided, I asked for forgiveness, and they were very generous in allowing me some latitude. One story is an interesting story. It goes back to around 1986. And my position at Merrill Lynch, I was the chief financial officer of the investment banking division, which was a big, serious division. And one of the primary responsibilities of the CFO was to create the pool of money through the books and records that was going to be used to pay the bonuses for the investment bankers, which, as you can imagine, is a pretty important topic. So I don't remember the numbers exactly, but I do remember, let's just say that, we thought the amount we had in the pool was $50 million and that the books and records reflected that. And that's the amount of money that the head of the investment banking division spent in giving out bonuses. Well, about a week after the end of the year, I found out that, in fact, we had made a big mistake, and we didn't have $50 million in the books and records. We had $40 million. So we had a $10 million problem. And at that point, a lot of my training kicked in because you're not going to cover it up. You can't cover it up. So I had the rather unfortunate, experience of having to make a call, explain what happened. And this meeting I'll never forget. I go upstairs, and the fellow that I work for looked me right in the eye, and he said, Ron, you don't know how disappointed I am in you, that we had screwed it up. And so I got that, and he goes, but look, you did the right thing. We're going to have to make the adjustment, and you and your group going forward, just be more careful. So learning that the best thing, and I've got a long list of mistakes, okay? I could tell you some funny ones that we'll just save it for another time. But the message is clear. As soon as it comes up, as soon as you're aware of it, you have to tell whoever you're working for. Because if any attempt to hide, to shade the truth, is in the end really a ticket to being uncomfortable and not being successful. And I have 2 people, but one's dead and one's alive. So, for years my answer was Muhammad Ali and Bob Dylan. And I would say I would go with both. I mean, I find them both attractive as individuals who had conviction around a set of beliefs that really defined their life and didn't compromise in the face of adversity, remained committed to their ideals. And in addition to having enormous talent in completely different fields, but they're two individuals that I admire tremendously and certainly would relish the opportunity to have to speak with them.